Hello, everybody.
Hey,
I'm Amelia,
I'm Tom.
and we're coming to you on a wintry day from Dayton, Ohio, late 2020. Looking forward to New Year in a few days and possibilities. We hope that 2021 will be better for everybody than 2020 has been. However, we have a great story that's really a wonderful story for the new year, coming from the Gospel according to John. So Tom will tell it to us.
Well, this is John's introduction to his story of Jesus. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. He was in the beginning with God. All things came into being through him, and without him, not one thing came into being. That which came into being in him was life, and the life was the light of all people. The light shines in the darkness, and the darkness has not overcome it. There was a man sent from God whose name was John. He came for testimony, to bear witness to the light, so that all might believe through him. He was not himself the light, but he came to bear witness to the light. The true light that enlightens everyone was coming into the world. He was in the world, and the world came into being through him, yet the world did not know him. He came to what was his own, and his own people did not accept him. But to those who did receive him, who believed in his name, he gave power to become children of God, who are born not of blood, nor the will of the flesh, nor the will of a man, but of God. And the Word became flesh and lived among us. And we have beheld his glory, glory as of the only Son of a Father, full of grace and truth. Now this is what John testified when he said, "After me comes one who ranks ahead of me, for he was before me. And of his fullness we have all received grace upon grace. For the law came through Moses. Grace and truth came through Jesus Christ. No one has ever seen God. The only Son, who is close to the Father's heart. This one has made God known."
Oh, thank you, Tom. I love hearing that story. The first part of that, about the light and the light shines in the darkness, kind of ending with that. I used every week last year before the pandemic, when I went to prison or the jail, and I developed a lighting ritual with that, lighting a candle. It just seemed so appropriate, and
Light in the darkness.
Right, to affirm strongly that darkness shall not put that light out. So,
right.
And I think that's a word that it's very helpful to hear now as well.
For this year.
Yeah.
and for this time and for the months that are immediately ahead, which look to be catastrophic.
So this is the fourth gospel, and each one of the gospels seems to have a very distinctive way of getting started. This one starts by saying "in the beginning," which rings very familiar to the Genesis story, to the actual beginning of the scriptures. You want to talk about that connection? I mean, is that intentional, do you think?
I think it's clearly intentional. But what it refers to, what it does is to set, first of all, it identifies when Jesus became, I don't know, divine, when, and so it's very philosophical. The word, the logos, was a primary concept in Stoic philosophy. And so this, in the beginning was the logos, is a philosophical description of a power, of an energy that was present from the beginning of creation. And of course, I think of that now. I regularly think of this this beginning of John, when I see these magnificent pictures from the telescopes of the cosmos and of these enormous galaxies. And I think in the beginning of the Big Bang, 13.8 billion years ago. For a lot of people, this realization of the scope of the universe and of its expanding, all that becomes a way in which, I don't know, they can no longer believe in God. It's so big, it's so enormous that it's beyond our ability to conceive and beyond our way of conceiving God. But I think in the context of what John is talking about, and if John was living now, he would have said, I think, the Logos was present at the beginning, at the Big Bang. And whatever it is that we can conceive or imagine, the Logos, the energy of God, was present at that moment and has then expanded into this vast universe. And then, of course, it has expanded on in the world, in the earth. So I find this to be a connection with this new learning that we are doing about the character of the cosmos.
What is it is a cosmic poem almost, isn't it? A cosmic.
Yep.
Very big. And actually, of course, Jesus isn't named in that whole section that you told us. Yeah. So it's almost, but we do have a man named. So yes. John, there was a man named John. So we go from this cosmic picture that actually we know is even more kind of incomprehensibly huge than folks did back then. Down and get, suddenly bring it way down to this one individual, a real change of feel in the passage. There was a man named John. Now, those of us who know the stories, we know who this John is, but if you were part of this early community, first hearing this, and you'd never heard the whole story, you'd never heard Mark's version, you would know who John is. But tell us who John is, Tom.
Well,
we'll find out soon. I'm aware of that. But at this point, we don't know yet. There's a man.
That's right. That's right. Well, I want to say one other thing about the cosmic thing, which was that I've noticed in the pictures and all that from the satellites and all that, that outer space is dark. There's darkness in between all of these galaxies. So there are points of light, but the reality of the darkness is both a reality of space and also often of our experience. And so the gift of light, just the other night, there was this magnificent moon, and I was just struck by the light in the midst of the darkness. So that's just a great metaphor for the light of God.
Yeah.
And John then is introduced as one who Jesus, who introduces then the word. And clearly, what's in the background of this is that there were communities of followers of John the Baptist in Jesus' day, right? And in John's day, say 90 AD. And that part of what is happening in this introduction of John is the inclusion of the followers of John into the community of those who are celebrating, taking seriously or forming then these Jesus communities. So it's interesting to me the way that it's formulated, that he comes as a witness to testify. So it's all legal language, and that he comes to testify to the light and to bear witness. So it's, the metaphor is his holding his hand and swearing on the Bible and giving then testimony. And his testimony is regarded by the author of this poem and of this gospel as true and as establishing the facts of the case.
I thought about that as well. Again, telling this in the context. I haven't told that part of it in a jail or in a prison, but it'd be interesting to do that because it is very courtroom language, but more, I guess, more positive way. Well, let's talk a little bit about how this one who is coming is not going to be recognized. It's not going to be accepted, even though is in the world. I was struck by that. I actually started telling, when I was working on this myself, telling it in the present tense because I still think it's the case, and often that the Messiah, the one who's coming, is not accepted, even by his own people, the church. In my view, at least not the Jesus that I think that we learn about in the Gospels. But what was the meaning for the folks who first heard this? What was that all about?
Well, first of all is the concept of the world, that he came, that the world came into being through him. He came into the world. So it is a kind of superhero image of his coming into the world, coming down from the heights. I imagine that many of the people who heard the story originally thought of heaven as being, up there, and that then God would come down from heaven. But
Tom, let me interrupt you just a minute, because that makes me think this really, we've just had Christmas. It's another way of understanding God coming in the world. We think of, the baby in the manger is how God came into the world. So this is another way of talking about God coming into the world.
Yes.
And also in a way that's not where God is not recognized, as was, sort of the case with the infant. Is not, the shepherds recognized, these three magi did, but many didn't, would have ignored a poor child, poor parents. But yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, right. Yes. Well, this is a cosmic story. That becomes very particular with John. And it is a kind of prophecy of what's going to come later in the story, that he will may be rejected by his own people. But what clearly is the case at the end of this comment about it is that everyone who believes in his name is given power to become children of God, to be born out of the energy and spirit of God, and that is available to everyone, regardless of their biological identity. So this is a universal, both invitation, but also recognition that everyone, all human beings, are invited to and can become then children of God.
Yeah. Towards the very end, actually it is, I think, the last episode of this part of John's gospel. No one has ever seen the Father. And in the NRSV, which is what I've been working with, it says it is God the only Son. It is God the only Son who has made God known. God the only Son who's close to the Father's heart, who has made God known. It's a very confusing business. And I think you said it differently, and we've talked about that some. We even looked it up in a Spanish Bible, trying to figure out how do they pull these things together. And they deal with it there by putting Dios hyphen hijo. So they have God hyphen Son. But I'm trying to think, how did you do it when you told it to us? Or just talk about that confusing phrase.
I said it is the only Son of God who is close to the Father's heart. And that reflects, it's a very interesting thing. In the textual tradition, there are two different text traditions in relation to this verse. So one of them, the one that is followed by the NRSV and by many of the Greek editions, is in Greek ha monogenes, the only Son, the only born, theos, monogenes theos, which at some level doesn't make sense, because it is the only Son, God, who is in the bosom of, who is close to the Father's heart, who has made God known. Well, if God is the only Son, how, it is ambiguous, confusing. Another textual tradition that has many, of the strong manuscripts of the textual tradition has ha monogenes huios, the only Son who is close to the Father's heart. Well, that makes more sense. It's the Son who is making known the Father. And so I think that's a preferable translation. And makes more sense. And that the probability is that there were later editors who were then involved in all the discussions that led up to the Nicene Council and the controversies about what led to the doctrine of the Trinity, who then, when they heard the only Son, they wanted to have that be named as God. and inserted that. And so in terms of how this happened, this makes more sense to me as an explanation of how these two textual traditions would have happened. Whatever is the case, what it's about is the intimacy of relationship.
Okay.
Indeed, the identity of relationship between the Son, that is between Jesus, between the Son and the Father. So the Father and the Son and then the Holy Spirit becomes part of the story later with the introduction of the Paraclete and of the Spirit that will come after Jesus.
So if anybody, if it wants to preach on Trinitarian doctrine, they could have fun with this one. I could use this as a base.
That's right.
It's no more confusing than the doctrine of the Trinity. So,
Right.
but you, as you talked about that, it brought up something else, which has to do with God is portrayed as a son and as a father, and that's the one who's made him known. I always change that to God known, but there's no way around all of that male imagery for the divine, which is problematic, I believe, for women, and it's a major justice issue. So do you want to talk about that, and then segue into how this story might not just reinforce a certain injustice, but by how it might be supportive of justice in today's world?
The framework of the revelation of God in the tradition is clearly shaped by patriarchal culture. But it does not, I think, imply that God is male, and that then there's no way in which, I don't know, femininity, in which the woman and the female is a dimension of divine identity. My own perception of the biblical tradition is that God is wholly inclusive, not only of the world and of the cosmos, but also of all human beings. And so, this notion that these metaphors for God that are present in the scriptures mean that God is male are, I think, frankly, ridiculous. That this all-inclusive spirit that is formed by and is forming creation and the cosmos is also the spirit that has formed men and women, and that spirit, this Trinitarian spirit, these manifestations of God's spirit, is inclusive, and our language is gendered.
Yeah.
We're working on trying to acquire Spanish, and clearly the languages are gendered. But it does not imply that there is something exclusive about the gender in relation to the identity of God.
Right.
And so,
and actually in John, that comes out pretty strongly in the story of Jesus' encounter with the woman in Samaria at the well.
right.
Jesus explains to her, God is spirit, so we must worship in spirit and truth. So that's a real strong statement about God being spirit, which means God is neither male nor female. I think we have to admit that there is a lot of strong male imagery in that that God is referenced frequently in the Gospels as Father. And we can talk about another time what the significance of that is. But also, you know, it's pretty convincing to me that you say that doesn't mean God is male. Problem is, we sometimes have made, I mean, I think you know, people have leapt to that assumption. It's easy to go there. So
it certainly is, and it has been a source of huge injustice. I mean, the fact that women have only been able to vote in the United States for the last 100 years is a sign of the degree to which this gendering of people has been used as a means of massive injustice in relation to women and of male dominance. And so this reconception of God as being, as including male and female, masculine and feminine, is a very important justice issue that is present for us now.
Yeah, great. Okay, I guess it's time for us to sign off.
Okay.
Have a good New Year, everyone. This is a story
Indeed.
for Sunday after New Year's. Yeah. We will see you next week, God willing.
Right. Yes, and may this be good news.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Bye.
God bless.